Your emotions are not your enemies, they are signals. Understanding why you feel what you feel gives you the power to control your reactions rather than letting impulses control you. Every successful person has faced moments of fear, doubt, or anger, but what separates them is their ability to step back, observe, and choose how they respond. Emotions can be energy, but if unchecked, they become chains. Imagine if every time you felt frustration or disappointment, you could convert that energy into action, clarity, or decision making. It's not about suppressing emotions, it's about directing them with intention. Your mind is a garden, and emotions are seeds. You must decide which seeds to water, which to let grow wild, and which to uproot before they take over your life. This awareness alone can transform ordinary reactions into powerful steps toward growth. Most people are like passengers on a stormy sea, tossed by every wave of anger or fear, but the masters of life learn to be the captain of the ship, using storms as fuel rather than obstacles. You have the same potential to train your mind, to channel emotions like a river, powerful yet contained, giving life and direction instead of chaos. This is the essence of emotional mastery, and it's a skill, not a trait you're born with. Discipline is the bridge between feeling and action. When emotions rise, your brain wants to react instantly. Anger wants to lash out. Fear wants to retreat. Sadness wants to pause. But every spontaneous reaction carries a cost. The ability to pause, breathe, and choose your next step is what sets achievers apart. Think of life as a game where emotions are the players trying to steer your decisions, but you are the coach with the power to strategize. Successful people don't let a temporary feeling dictate permanent choices. They recognize the wave of emotion, feel it fully, and then act from a place of reason and vision. It's training your mind to act consciously, even when it wants to act unconsciously. You can develop habits, routines, and mental exercises that make this process almost automatic, so that instead of reacting in chaos, you respond with power. When fear arises, you acknowledge it and step forward anyway. When doubt comes, you recognize it and continue learning. Anger can be a signal to set boundaries, but it does not have to become destruction. Each moment you choose discipline over impulse, you build resilience. You turn emotion from a wildfire that destroys into a controlled flame that lights your path. And the beautiful thing is, the more you practice this, the easier it becomes. It's like training a muscle. At first, it's hard and shaky, but eventually, strength and balance come naturally. Your environment and associations shape how emotions affect you. You are influenced more than you realize by the people, media, and habits you surround yourself with. Positive influences amplify your ability to respond rather than react, while negativity magnifies chaos. Jim Rohn often emphasized that we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with, and that applies profoundly to emotional control. Surround yourself with individuals who model composure, clarity, and positivity, and you'll notice your own emotional responses becoming steadier. Similarly, the habits you cultivate, reading, meditation, reflection, gratitude, act as anchors that stabilize your mind. Emotions are like waves, but habits and associations are your surfboard, helping you ride instead of being swallowed. You can't control the ocean, but you can control how you surf. By curating your inputs, you give yourself the freedom to act from choice rather than compulsion. And when challenges come, as they inevitably will, you'll find that what once might have triggered panic or anger now becomes an opportunity to grow, to act wisely, and to inspire those around you. Emotional mastery is not about perfection. It's about preparation, awareness, and daily practice that compounds into unshakable strength over time. Your emotions are not your enemies. They are the most honest signals you have about yourself and your environment. Every time you feel anger, fear, sadness, or excitement, your mind is trying to tell you something. Most people, however, react without listening. They let emotions dictate their words, their choices, their actions, and then they wonder why life seems chaotic. Imagine if, instead of being ruled by every surge of feeling, you could step back and observe them, understand why they are there, and decide how to respond consciously. That simple shift transforms the ordinary into extraordinary. It turns reaction into action, and it turns energy that might destroy into energy that creates. Think about the last time you felt frustration. Maybe someone cut you off in traffic, maybe a project failed, or maybe a friend disappointed you. That rush of irritation rises, and the instinct is immediate. You want to yell, you want to snap, you want to lash out. That is emotion in its raw form, a spark. Now, what if instead of acting on it instantly, you paused, took a breath, and asked, "What is this trying to teach me? How can I use this feeling to move forward instead of backwards?" That pause is the difference between being controlled and being in control. Every successful person you admire has faced moments of fear, doubt, or anger. They have experienced heartbreak, failure, and disappointment just like you have. The difference is not that they felt less. The difference is that they learned to master their responses. They turned their emotions into fuel rather than allowing them to become chains. You can do the same. Emotions are energy, and energy always flows. If left unchecked, it flows into chaos, anxiety, or conflict. But if directed with intention, that energy becomes clarity, focus, and determination. Picture a river. Left untamed, it floods, destroys, and causes loss. But when channeled, it powers mills, nourishes crops, and sustains life. Your emotions are no different. They are a force of nature inside you, and it's your responsibility to channel them wisely. It's not about suppressing what you feel. Suppression leads to explosion. It's about awareness and direction. You are allowed to feel anger, sadness, fear, or joy. What matters is what you do with it. Every time you feel a surge of anger, you have a choice. Let it control you and watch it harm your relationships, your health, your clarity, or use it to identify boundaries, to assert yourself, to stand firm in your truth. Every time fear arises, you can let it freeze you in place, or you can recognize it as a signal to prepare, to act with caution but courage, to step forward anyway. Emotions, when understood, are teachers. They tell you where your values lie, where your priorities are, and where growth is waiting. Think of your mind as a garden. Emotions are seeds. Some are beautiful flowers that uplift, inspire, and energize. Some are weeds that choke, destroy, and distract. You must decide which seeds to water, which to let grow wild, and which to uproot before they take over. That decision is conscious mastery. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's a skill you can develop through practice. The more you notice your emotional patterns, the more you can intervene before they escalate. The more you practice pausing, reflecting, and choosing, the easier it becomes to respond with power instead of reacting with chaos. And here's the beautiful part. When you begin to master your emotions, life itself begins to feel easier. Challenges become opportunities, setbacks become lessons, frustrations become fuel for progress. Most people live as passengers on a stormy sea, tossed by every wave of anger, every gust of fear, every swell of disappointment. They let emotions dictate their day, their choices, their direction. But those who master themselves learn to be the captain of the ship. They steer through storms with calmness, precision, and clarity. They use the waves as propulsion rather than being dragged down by them, and you have the same potential. You can train your mind to observe first, respond second. You can learn to channel emotion like a river, powerful yet contained, giving life instead of causing destruction. This is the essence of emotional mastery, and it is available to anyone willing to do the work. Every moment of self-awareness is a moment of freedom. Every pause before a reaction is a chance to convert raw energy into focused action. Every reflection on why you feel what you feel is a step toward independence from chaos. It's a muscle, not a gift. At first, it may feel awkward. You may feel the temptation to react, to vent, to explode, but the more you practice, the stronger your emotional intelligence becomes. And as your mastery grows, you will notice something remarkable. Life begins to feel less like a series of battles and more like a journey you control. You will wake up to your power to shape your experience rather than letting circumstances dictate it. You will become resilient, calm, and unstoppable, and that power, that freedom, that clarity comes from one thing: the conscious decision to listen to your emotions without being dominated by them. Discipline is the bridge between feeling and action. It is the invisible force that transforms emotional energy into purposeful results. Every time you feel an emotional surge, anger, fear, doubt, frustration, your mind wants to react instantly. Anger wants to lash out, fear wants to hide, sadness wants to pause, and excitement wants to leap without thinking. Left unchecked, these impulses control your life, shaping your choices, your words, and even your destiny. But here's the secret. The most successful people in the world do not live without emotions. They feel as intensely as anyone else, but they have trained themselves to pause, to breathe, and to act deliberately. That pause, that split-second decision to choose your response, is where discipline becomes your most powerful ally. Imagine life as a chessboard and every emotional reaction as a pawn trying to move itself. You are the player. You have the strategy, the vision, and the power to direct every move. Without discipline, the pawns move themselves chaotically, and the game is lost. With discipline, every emotion becomes a tool. Every reaction becomes a calculated step toward your goals. Most people underestimate the power of this pause. They allow a moment of anger to ruin relationships, a moment of fear to stop them from pursuing their dreams, or a moment of sadness to paralyze their progress. But when you develop discipline, you create a space between stimulus and response, a space where wisdom, clarity, and intention can step in. This is not easy. At first, the instinct to react unconsciously is strong. Your brain is wired for immediate survival, and immediate reaction feels natural. But just because it feels natural does not mean it serves you. Every time you choose to pause and respond consciously, you strengthen your mental muscle. You teach yourself that emotions are not commands, they are signals, information to guide your next step. Over time, this practice compounds. Small moments of discipline lead to larger victories, and eventually, responding wisely becomes almost automatic. Think about fear. Fear is one of the most powerful emotions because it triggers our fight or flight response. Without discipline, fear dictates life. It tells you not to take risks, not to speak up, not to try something new. But discipline allows you to acknowledge fear without surrendering to it. You recognize it, analyze it, and decide to move forward anyway. This is how leaders are made, how innovators break barriers, and how ordinary people achieve extraordinary things. Fear is not the enemy. An unbridled reaction to fear is. Anger works the same way. When anger arises, it can be destructive, causing broken relationships, regret, and loss. But discipline transforms anger into clarity, a tool to set boundaries, to assert values, and to protect what matters. Every emotion carries potential energy. Discipline is the conductor that channels it into constructive action rather than destructive chaos. This is why habits matter. Habits are the scaffolding for discipline. The routines you build in your daily life determine how easily you can navigate emotional waves. Daily practice of self-reflection, meditation, journaling, or even simple breathing exercises strengthens your capacity to pause before reacting. Successful people do not rely on occasional bursts of willpower. They build habits that make disciplined responses almost automatic. Think of it as programming your mind. With the right habits, when frustration arises at work, your mind instinctively takes a moment, analyzes the situation, and responds with reason rather than emotion. When fear threatens to hold you back, your habits guide you to take the next constructive step anyway. Discipline is not about suppression. It's about structure, preparation, and repeated practice that rewires your brain for mastery. Every time you act with discipline, you gain momentum. The emotional storms that once seemed overwhelming now become manageable. You no longer react with panic, blame, or regret. You act from purpose, and your actions create results. And here's a powerful truth. The more disciplined you become, the less energy you waste on regret and confusion. Every decision, every action, every step is aligned with your goals and your values. You begin to experience a clarity that others envy, a calmness in the middle of chaos. Life does not become easier because challenges vanish. Life becomes easier because you respond differently. The storms are still there, but now you navigate them like a skilled sailor, using the winds and waves to propel you forward rather than letting them push you backward. Discipline also strengthens your confidence. When you learn that you can pause, that you can choose, that you can respond deliberately, you realize that no emotion has the power to control you. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are the architect of your life. And this realization fuels a positive cycle. Confidence reinforces discipline, and discipline reinforces confidence. Over time, the person you were, who reacted impulsively to every surge of emotion, becomes someone calm, focused, and unstoppable. You discover that the real power does not lie in suppressing emotions, but in mastering the space between emotion and action. That space is where greatness is born. Discipline is not an innate trait reserved for a lucky few. It is a skill cultivated through awareness, practice, and commitment. Every time you choose to pause, every time you decide to act consciously rather than react unconsciously, you grow stronger. Every small victory compounds, and over time, it transforms the trajectory of your life. You will find that the chaos of emotional highs and lows no longer rules your decisions. You will act from clarity, from purpose, from vision, and from power. And as you strengthen this discipline, you will notice that life responds in kind. Opportunities align, relationships improve, and your potential unfolds in ways you once thought impossible. Your environment and associations shape how emotions affect you more than you may realize. Jim Rohn often said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and this truth applies profoundly to emotional mastery. If you are surrounded by people who are constantly negative, critical, or reactive, their energy seeps into your mind, subtly influencing your thoughts, your moods, and your choices. Even if you try to remain disciplined, repeated exposure to negativity chips away at your resolve. On the other hand, if you spend time with individuals who model composure, positivity, and emotional intelligence, their habits, reactions, and mindset naturally influence you. You begin to absorb their calm, their patience, their resilience without even trying. Your associations either amplify your ability to control your emotions or magnify chaos. And the choice of who and what you surround yourself with is one of the most powerful tools you have in emotional mastery. Your environment isn't just the people you interact with, it's the media you consume, the habits you maintain, and the daily rituals you practice. If you spend hours scrolling through news that triggers fear, outrage, or comparison, your mind becomes an emotional sponge for anxiety and negativity. If you fill your time with gossip, drama, or distractions that fuel reactive behaviors, your emotional control diminishes. Conversely, when you choose books that inspire, music that uplifts, routines that center you, and content that educates and motivates, you are cultivating a mental ecosystem that reinforces strength and calm. Think of it like planting a garden. Every influence is a seed. Positive seeds grow into flowers that uplift and energize, while negative seeds grow into weeds that strangle your emotional resilience. By curating your inputs carefully, you gain the freedom to act consciously rather than being swept away by the waves of impulsive reaction. Habits act as anchors that stabilize your mind amidst emotional turbulence. When life throws challenges at you, as it inevitably will, habits create a baseline of consistency and calm. Daily reflection, meditation, journaling, gratitude, and disciplined routines give your mind a structure that prevents chaos from taking over. When you wake up and start your day with intentional practices, your emotional reactions throughout the day are calmer, measured, and deliberate. Habits are not restrictions, they are tools of liberation. They give you the strength to respond instead of react, to build instead of destroy, and to grow instead of stagnate. And over time, these habits compound in ways you may not immediately notice. A few minutes of reflection each day eventually create a mind that can withstand immense pressure without losing composure. Small acts of emotional management build a fortress around your mental state, and that fortress becomes impenetrable in times of crisis. Emotional mastery is not about perfection. It is about preparation, awareness, and practice. No one responds perfectly in every situation, but those who consistently cultivate awareness, discipline, and a positive environment gradually become unshakable. You will still feel fear, anger, frustration, and doubt, but those emotions no longer control you. They inform you, guide you, and propel you forward when managed wisely. Imagine facing a sudden challenge, a difficult conversation at work, an unexpected setback, or a personal conflict. A person without emotional awareness reacts impulsively, possibly damaging relationships, losing credibility, or increasing stress. A person who has cultivated the right environment and habits pauses, reflects, and responds strategically. That pause creates a margin for better judgment, a window for clarity, and a pathway to action that aligns with their goals. And this ability to pause and respond is not luck. It is the result of deliberate effort and the influence of a well-curated environment. Consider the ripple effect of your emotional state. One unregulated outburst can spiral into days of tension, broken trust, and lost opportunities. One intentional, measured response can build respect, inspire others, and create momentum towards success. Your emotional control not only affects you, it affects everyone around you. People notice calmness, composure, and thoughtful decision making. They respond differently to those who act deliberately. Your environment reinforces this cycle. By choosing associations that inspire, mentors who guide, friends who challenge positively, and content that uplifts, you surround yourself with forces that strengthen your emotional resilience. Over time, emotional mastery becomes less about conscious effort in every moment and more about living in a state where your reactions naturally reflect clarity, purpose, and strength. This is the power of preparation and consistent practice. Emotional mastery is not a single act of willpower. It is the cumulative effect of daily choices, disciplined habits, and intentional associations. Every book you read, every person you spend time with, every thought you nurture, and every habit you cultivate acts like scaffolding for your emotional stability. When stress comes, when fear arises, when frustration peaks, your mental structure supports you. It does not prevent the waves from hitting, but it gives you the strength to stand, to respond, and to move forward rather than being swept away. Over time, this preparation creates freedom, freedom from reactive chaos, freedom to act consciously, freedom to live intentionally, freedom to transform emotional energy into power, clarity, and achievement. You cannot control everything in life, but you can control what surrounds you, what you feed your mind, and what habits you cultivate. Those choices shape the way your emotions influence you and determine whether you are a passenger of circumstance or the captain of your life. By curating your environment and associations wisely, you create a foundation for emotional mastery that compounds every day, turning ordinary experiences into extraordinary opportunities for growth, resilience, and success. You've heard about emotions, discipline, and the power of your environment. But let me ask you this. How often do we allow a fleeting feeling to determine the trajectory of our entire day, week, or even life? Imagine this scenario. A man wakes up, his mind foggy with worry. He spills coffee, his email inbox is overflowing, and a colleague criticizes him unfairly. Most people react immediately. They snap, complain, and let frustration rule their day. But picture this. What if that same man paused for just a moment? He takes a deep breath, recognizes the anger, the disappointment, and the fear, and says to himself, "I choose how I respond." That moment of awareness, that single pause, transforms the day, the relationships, and perhaps the course of his life. And that, my friends, is the essence of mastering your emotions. Think of your emotions as a conversation between your mind and your heart. You don't have to agree with every message your emotions send. Fear might whisper, "You can't do it." Anger may roar, "Fight now." Sadness might groan, "Give up." But you have the power to respond. You can say, "I hear you, but I will choose wisely. I will act intentionally." And here's the beauty. Every time you do this, you are building strength, a resilience that can never be taken from you. Imagine your life as a garden. Each emotion is a seed. Without attention, weeds take over. But with awareness, patience, and care, beautiful flowers grow, giving color, fragrance, and life to your world. Now let me tell you a story of a young woman. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah was full of talent and ambition, but she often let fear dictate her decisions. She avoided opportunities, doubted herself constantly, and let anger and frustration control her relationships. One day, a mentor told her, "Sarah, you are letting your emotions drive the car. Take the wheel. Decide where you want to go, and let your emotions be the fuel, not the driver." That day, Sarah began practicing small pauses. She acknowledged fear instead of running from it. She channeled anger into productive problem solving, and she cultivated habits that strengthened her mind. Slowly but surely, her life transformed. Opportunities she once avoided, she now embraced. Relationships she once strained, she now nurtured. And the most remarkable change, Sarah realized she wasn't just controlling her emotions. She was mastering her destiny. And this, friends, is what Jim Rohn meant when he said, "You cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight." Emotional mastery is the steering wheel of your life. Discipline is the engine that drives you forward, and the environment you choose is the road you travel. If any one of these is neglected, you are at risk of being swept off course. But when all three work together, you are unstoppable. Every moment of self-awareness compounds. Every disciplined choice builds momentum. Every positive association reinforces strength. And over time, life responds in ways that feel almost magical. But it is not magic, it is mastery, earned through conscious effort and consistent practice. Think about this dialogue for a moment. Picture yourself facing a challenge, a dream job opportunity, a difficult conversation, or a personal setback. Fear arises and whispers, "Step back. It's too risky." Doubt says, "You're not ready. You'll fail." Anger may even flare up. "This isn't fair." Now pause, take a deep breath, say to yourself, "I am the captain of this ship. I choose how I respond. I will act with clarity, courage, and purpose." That inner conversation, repeated again and again, builds not just emotional control, but unshakable confidence. You begin to notice that what once felt overwhelming now becomes manageable. What once triggered panic now sparks preparation. What once created regret now creates results. And let's talk about your environment for a moment. Imagine a room full of people, each radiating calm, focus, and positivity. Now imagine the same room filled with negativity, drama, and chaos. Which room do you think helps you make better choices, respond wisely, and grow exponentially? Your environment and associations act like a mirror, reflecting back the energy you absorb. Surround yourself with people who lift you higher, who model resilience, and who inspire you to act with intention. Curate your habits, your media, and your routines so that they reinforce your goals rather than derail them. The more deliberate your environment, the easier it becomes to maintain emotional mastery, to act with discipline, and to live the life you were meant to lead. So here's the challenge I leave with you today. The next time an emotion rises, don't react. Pause, observe, decide. The next time fear knocks, don't flee, prepare, step forward. The next time anger flares, don't explode. Redirect, harness it, and as you practice this consistently, watch what happens. Your days become smoother, your decisions sharper, your relationships deeper, and your goals closer. You will discover a power within yourself that you didn't know existed. A power that cannot be taken, borrowed, or lost. Remember this dialogue: I feel fear, but I act with courage. I feel anger, but I respond with wisdom. I feel doubt, but I move forward anyway. I am not my emotions. I am the master of my mind. I am the captain of my life. Say it every day, mean it every day, and live it every day. And gradually, imperceptibly at first, your life begins to change. Challenges become opportunities, setbacks become lessons, and chaos becomes clarity. That is the power of emotional mastery. That is the legacy of discipline. That is the gift of the environment you choose to cultivate. That is the path Jim Rohn showed us. A path not to luck, not to shortcuts, but to real, lasting success built from within, one conscious choice at a time. Now step into your life with that power. Embrace your emotions, harness your discipline, and surround yourself with influences that elevate you. The journey will not always be easy, but it will always be worth it. And as you walk that path, remember, every pause, every choice, every deliberate action is a declaration of freedom. You are no longer at the mercy of your feelings. You are no longer a passenger of circumstance. You are the architect of your future. You are unstoppable. You are limitless. You are ready.